Number 7. Girl Scouts robbed. On March 9th, 2020, Tracy Brown was helping her 7-year-old daughters sell Girl Scout cookies when a violent assailant robbed her and ran her over with a stolen car. The mother of triplets had a good afternoon up until that point, but when 2 customers gave her large bills, she made the mistake of revealing the bag in her nearby minivan where she had hidden all her cash. As the customers left, one of her helpers cried out that an unknown man was trying to steal her money. Brown leapt into action, grabbing the thief by the dreadlocks and trying to push him to the ground, but he slipped through her fingers and knocked her down. The thief got into his white Hyundai and ran over her as he made his escape. The victim was able to escape unharmed, and when she called the police and told them the vehicle's license plate number, she was told it had been stolen just minutes before the incident. Since Brown had been unable to deliver the money to her daughter's Girl Scout rep the previous Sunday, the thief was able to get away with $1,500. The perpetrator was never found, but Brown claims she has learned her lesson, saying that she should have locked her minivan. Unfortunately, there was no way to recover the money that was stolen from her. Number 6. Carjacked by teenagers. On August 28, 2022, 23-year-old Brian Robertson Jr. was shot in the leg and hit by 2 teenagers trying to steal his car. The victim had signed on with the Washington Commanders as a running back just 3 months prior, and his injuries put his entire career in jeopardy. On the day of the incident, he went to the Crab Boss restaurant with some friends, likely to celebrate the life-changing signing. At 6 p.m., Robertson left the restaurant and headed for his Dodge Challenger Hellcat, parked half a block away, only to find 2 armed assailants ready to attack. Robertson got into a physical altercation with one of the assailants, wrestling him to the ground and taking away his gun. But the other culprits took the opportunity to fire 2 shots. The attackers stole his wallet and his car keys, and Robertson had to run away as fast as he could. He managed to get to a hospital where he received treatment for his wounds, but he was forced to delay his NFL debut by a whole month. On November 1st, police arrested a 17-year-old boy in connection with the shooting and charged him with assault with a deadly weapon. His 15-year-old co-conspirator was arrested days later. Not only was the younger boy responsible for shooting Robertson, but he had also taken the life of a teenage victim on October 13th with the same gun. Both culprits were charged as juveniles, and they pleaded guilty to all charges. Given their age, the results of their trial have been kept under wraps. Fortunately, Robertson was able to make a full recovery and enjoyed a successful first season as a rookie running back. Number 5. The Maserati Gunman. At around 5 p.m. on May 19, 2021, 42-year-old Kenneth Miles Davis walked up to a mother driving her children and fired bullets straight into her sedan. The culprit was driving a Maserati along DC's Eastern Avenue at the time. For a while, the make and model of the car, along with grainy security footage depicting the grim incident, were the only pieces of evidence the authorities had. DC police immediately began searching for the suspect, but little did they know, he had already fled the country. Luckily, the victim survived the encounter, but she experienced severe psychological trauma as a result of the shooting. Based on video evidence, she inadvertently cut off the shooter while changing lanes, prompting him to exit his vehicle and fire rounds into her car. The fact that 2 children were present makes this event all the more horrifying, but fortunately, one got through unscathed, while the other only suffered minor cuts and abrasions. After being shot, the unnamed victim rear-ended another vehicle, and the assailant fired even more bullets at oncoming traffic. His clear lack of skill in handling a weapon ensured that no one else was harmed in the shooting. Police offered a reward of $10,000 for anyone that could provide information on the culprit's whereabouts, and 2 weeks later, they finally learned his identity. However, Davis had fled all the way to South America by that point, and it took weeks of searching to bring him to justice. On August 5th, a task force consisting of the U.S. Marshals, Homeland Security, and D.C. Police finally apprehended Davis in Costa Rica. The process of extradition commenced, and the culprit was returned to U.S. soil on October 6th, where he was officially charged with assault with a deadly weapon. Do you think Davis should have received a harsher charge? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 4. Hotel Room Homicide. On March 31st, 2023, 43-year-old George Sidner Jr. allegedly stabbed 31-year-old Christy Bautista 30 times. Reports suggest that he even tried to smoke a cigarette in her hotel room after committing the violent act. The victim had booked into a room at the Ivy City Hotel in Washington, D.C. at around 5:55 p.m. on the day of her death. Sidner, who had been homeless for quite some time, was spotted in surveillance footage riding a bike at 6:45 p.m. before placing his ear on the door. The door was apparently unlocked, allowing him to enter the room. Not long after, a witness saw Bautista opening the door and crying for help before being dragged inside by an unknown assailant who appeared to be African American. This prompted the witness to call the police, but when they arrived on the scene at approximately 6:55, just 10 minutes later, it was already too late. When officers entered the room, they saw Bautista's body, rendered unrecognizable by countless stab wounds, as well as her presumed culprit lighting a cigarette. Sidner had taken his victim's life in such a violent frenzy that he had severed her spinal cord, leaving her paralyzed as he finished the job. He had even cut his own hand several times during the attack, and part of the kitchen knife he had used to take Bautista's life ended up lodged in his jacket. It turned out that Sidner had a long and violent criminal history stretching back around 20 years. Several of his crimes involved female victims, and in the fall of 2022, he had pleaded guilty to armed robbery. He was allowed to roam free while he awaited his January 2023 sentencing hearing, but he skipped his court appearance and had been on the run ever since. He was only apprehended after police caught him standing over Bautista's lifeless body. On April 3rd, Sidner pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree homicide. He also faces several other pending charges, including grand larceny and attempted robbery, stemming from a crime spree that took him from D.C. to Maryland. At first, Sidner's lawyer claimed his client was acting in self-defense. However, the perpetrator, standing at 6'4", would not have had anything to fear from 5-foot-tall Bautista. This, coupled with the victim's blood and hair found all over him, led him to being held without bond. Based on the latest information, Sidner's trial is underway, beginning with a preliminary hearing on May 8th. Given his history of violence and refusal to take accountability, it's almost certain that he will be declared guilty, and the judge will penalize him to the fullest extent of the law. Number 3. A lethal argument. On August 10th, 2014, Devin James Wooten and Tamu Bynum, both 43 years old, got into a heated argument. Things eventually escalated to the point where Wooten shot Bynum to death. Police arrived at around 7 p.m. on the day of the incident, quickly finding the victim's body riddled with gunshot wounds. After checking her vitals, they declared her dead on the spot. They had no idea where the killer could be, but it did not take long for Wooten to become the prime suspect. An investigation revealed that he and Bynum were in a relationship at the time, and after trying to hide for a day, the killer eventually surrendered himself to police on August 11th. No information has been revealed about any ulterior motives he might have had. It appears that this is just a case of the perpetrator's anger getting the better of him, and the victim's death is yet another example of the tragic rise in gun violence. Wooten was charged with second-degree homicide, and he is currently serving his sentence at the Jessup Correctional Institution in Maryland. Number 2. Navy officer goes berserk. At 8:16 a.m. on September 16, 2013, 34-year-old former Navy officer Aaron Alexis began a mass shooting spree at the Washington Navy Yard that left 12 people dead and 8 injured. The perpetrator joined the Navy in 2007, working in logistics and eventually attaining the rank of third-class petty officer, before being honorably discharged on January 31, 2011. However, he had received 8 citations for misconduct during his military career, including an incident where he was arrested for firing his gun in Fort Worth's city limits. In 2004, he shot up a man's car in what he described as an anger-induced blackout. Despite his history, he was never prosecuted, and he was even given high-security clearance by the Navy in March 2008. In the lead-up to the shooting, Alexis began exhibiting signs of deteriorating mental health. On August 2nd, just weeks before the incident, he filed a police report claiming he could hear voices inside his head. 2 days later, police came to his hotel room and found he had ripped his bed open, believing it contained a secret listening device inside. On the day of the incident, the perpetrator arrived at the Navy Yard at 7:53 a.m., using his security clearance to gain entry. 15 minutes later, he entered Building 197 and headed for the 4th floor, where he assembled his sawn-off shotgun in the bathroom. At 8:16, he fired the first shot, taking 8 lives in 4 minutes, before proceeding to the 3rd floor. Authorities began arriving at 8:23 a.m., but as they searched for the right building, the shooter was systematically killing everyone in his path. By 8:55, Alexis had claimed his final victim, a security guard named Richard Ridgell, and tried to hide among the cubicles on the 3rd floor. When officers finally caught up to him, a shootout ensued, and a member of the emergency response team, Dorian DeSantis, was shot twice in his Kevlar suit. 10 minutes later, at approximately 9:25 a.m., DeSantis managed to shoot the assailant in the head, finally bringing his reign of terror to a close. DeSantis later received the Presidential Medal of Bravery for his actions, and on December 19, 2014, then-President Barack Obama established a memorial for all of the victims. Number 1. The Inheritance. During the last few hours of New Year's Eve 2022, 39-year-old Anna Welsh had dinner with her husband, 49-year-old Brian Welsh, and a friend, before seemingly disappearing into thin air. Later evidence revealed that her husband may have taken her life and dismembered her corpse to cover his tracks. On January 4, 2023, Anna's employer, the real estate firm Tishman Speyer, filed a police report when she did not show up for work. Brian had apparently called them to ask if she had arrived, and he filed a separate missing persons report when he learned that she was nowhere to be found. However, this could have been part of his plan. Apart from working at a prestigious company, Anna was also an accomplished real estate investor with a portfolio valued at around $2.8 million. According to prosecutors, Brian took his wife's life to get his hands on this inheritance. Brian has a history as a con man, starting when he ran off with a sizable sum from his father around 15 years prior to this incident. After marrying Anna in 2016, the alleged perpetrator tried to sell forged Andy Warhol paintings through his wife's eBay account. This led to him getting charged with fraud in October 2018. That same year, his father died after writing him out of his will. The loss of an inheritance, coupled with the prospect of jail time and fines from the fraud charges, sent Brian's life into a tailspin. To make things worse, his wife had started an affair with an unnamed DC man. She went so far as to spend Thanksgiving with him in Dublin, Ireland in 2022. And after Anna died, her lover admitted that they had been seeing each other for several months. By December 2022, Brian began having suspicions about his wife's potential extramarital activities. After obsessively checking the Instagram page of one of her male friends, he told his mother to hire a private investigator on December 26th. After his wife supposedly left for the airport on January 1st, Brian used his son's iPad to make a series of incriminating searches that would eventually lead to his arrest, such as how long it would take for a dead body to smell, 10 ways to dispose of a dead body, and most importantly, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. Over the next 2 days, he purchased 13 bottles of hydrogen peroxide, 3 rugs, a hatchet, and various cleaning supplies. Cell phone tracking data led authorities to a dumpster where Brian had deposited 10 bags containing a hacksaw, a hatchet, and several of Anna's bloodied belongings. A deeper analysis of Brian's location history revealed that he had made visits to several other dumpsters across the city. A search was initiated, and on January 8th, Brian was arrested after DNA evidence and a bloody knife was found in his Coasset home. Based on his location history, prosecutors alleged that Brian had cut Anna's dead body into pieces after trying to dispose of it and dumped the remains into various dumpsters. On January 18th, Brian was charged with first-degree homicide and illegally disposing a body. He was indicted on these charges on March 30th, and while the trial will likely take months to conclude, there is more than enough evidence to put Brian away for life. However, no matter how severe his punishment, his 3 children will have to live with the fact that he took their mother's life. Which of these violent DC crimes shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.